It was Christmas Day, and McDonald's was bustling with activity. Families were laughing, kids were tugging at their parents' hands for happy meals, and the smell of fries and burgers filled the air. The restaurant was alive with holiday cheer as people sought a quick bite before heading off to their celebrations. Amidst the lively crowd, a man walked in. He was dressed simply, his coat slightly worn, his demeanor quiet. He looked around as if trying to decide what to order. Despite his calm presence, he didn't attract much attention, just another customer in the crowd. Behind the counter, a waitress was taking orders, her voice sharp as she juggled multiple tasks. She glanced at the man briefly, but didn't smile. He stepped forward to place his order, polite and unassuming. But something shifted. The waitress's expression hardened, her tone grew cold. "We don't serve people like you here," she said bluntly, her words cutting through the festive noise. The man froze, a look of quiet disbelief crossing his face. Some customers turned to look, sensing the tension. Others carried on, too absorbed in their own worlds to notice. The waitress crossed her arms, her attitude unapologetic, as if daring him to push back. The man didn't argue. He simply nodded, stepped aside, and walked to a nearby table. He sat down, his face unreadable. It seemed like the incident would end there, unnoticed and forgotten. But what no one in that room knew, including the waitress, was that this man wasn't just anyone. He carried a story and a status that would soon make everyone, especially the waitress, regret what had just happened. Little did they know the quiet man who had just been insulted was about to turn this ordinary Christmas day into something extraordinary. It was Christmas Day, and McDonald's had a different kind of energy. The usual hum of fast food orders was accompanied by cheerful chatter. Decorations hung from the ceiling, twinkling lights, red and green garlands, and a makeshift Christmas tree near the entrance. Even the menu screens flashed with holiday specials. Customers came in wearing thick coats and scarves, brushing off the cold as they greeted each other with "Merry Christmas." The smell of freshly fried fries and warm apple pies filled the air, adding to the coziness. The staff bustled behind the counter, handing out orders in red Santa hats. Most employees smiled and wished customers a happy holiday as they rushed to keep up with the crowd. Among the employees, one waitress stood out, not for her warmth, but for her sharp, hurried demeanor. Her name tag read Karen. She moved briskly, her face tight with impatience. Karen had been working since morning, and her mood showed it. She muttered under her breath whenever a customer took too long to decide, rolling her eyes if an order was complicated. Karen's body language spoke volumes. Her tone lacked the festive cheer the day demanded. She reserved smiles for certain customers, those who looked polished and well off. Others she treated as nuisances, her words clipped and cold. Then the black man entered. He stepped into the warm restaurant, brushing snow off his shoulders. His coat was plain and worn, his shoes scuffed from years of use. He carried himself with quiet dignity, his gaze scanning the menu with genuine thoughtfulness. Despite the busy scene, Karen noticed him immediately. Her eyes narrowed slightly, her lips pressing into a thin line. He didn't fit the image of a customer she deemed worthy of attention. She tapped her pen impatiently against her notepad as he approached the counter. He didn't rush, didn't raise his voice to match the bustling atmosphere. His calm stood in contrast to the chaos around him. He offered a polite nod as he prepared to order, completely unaware of the judgment already forming in Karen's mind. It was a moment charged with unspoken tension, unnoticed by most of the room. The cheerful holiday backdrop only made it more glaring, a collision of festivity and prejudice ready to unfold. The man stepped up to the counter, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He glanced at the menu board above, scanning the options as he reached into his pocket for his wallet. The noise of the restaurant swirled around him, laughter, footsteps, the rhythmic hum of the kitchen, but he seemed unaffected, focused solely on placing his order. Karen, standing behind the register, looked at him with a mix of impatience and indifference. She tapped her fingers lightly on the counter, her expression neutral at first, but slowly shifting as she gave him a once-over. Her lips curled slightly, not in a smile, but in something closer to disdain. "What can I get you?" she asked, her tone flat, lacking the forced cheer she had used for the previous customers. "I'll have a coffee, please. Black. And maybe a breakfast sandwich," the man replied, his voice calm and steady. Karen hesitated as if weighing her next move. Then she leaned forward slightly, her tone sharpening. "You know what, I think you should go somewhere else," she said, her words pointed and deliberate. The man blinked, caught off guard. "Excuse me," he asked, his voice still composed, though a hint of confusion crept in. Karen folded her arms across her chest, her posture defensive. "I don't think we can serve you today," she said, louder this time, drawing the attention of a few nearby customers. "Maybe try the diner down the street." For a moment the man said nothing. He stood there, his calm demeanor unwavering, though his eyes held a flicker of hurt. Around them, the festive chaos of McDonald's seemed to blur the cheerful noise, turning into an uncomfortable silence for those close enough to hear. "I'm not sure I understand," he said finally, his voice soft yet firm. "Is there a problem?" Karen smirked, her arms still crossed. "No problem," she replied, her tone laced with sarcasm. "I just think this isn't the right place for you. That's all." The man's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer. He didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. Instead, he nodded slightly, as if accepting her words without resistance. "All right," he said simply. He stepped aside and walked to a nearby table, his movements measured and controlled. He sat down, placing his wallet back into his pocket. The room seemed to hold its breath, a few customers exchanging uneasy glances, while others remained oblivious. Despite the insult, the man's calm demeanor remained unbroken. But beneath that quiet exterior, something was brewing, something no one, not even Karen, could have anticipated. As the man sat quietly at the table, the buzz of the restaurant carried on around him. Karen, back at the counter, seemed satisfied that Shed handled the situation. To her, he was just another customer. She wouldn't give a second thought. But the truth was far from ordinary. This man, whose worn coat and humble appearance gave no hint of his status, was one of the wealthiest individuals in the country. A self-made billionaire, his journey had been anything but easy. He'd grown up in a small, struggling neighborhood, working odd jobs as a teenager to help his family make ends meet. Through sheer determination and ingenuity, he had built an empire. Starting with a small tech startup in his 20s, he turned his ideas into groundbreaking innovations that transformed industries. His work ethic and vision earned him success beyond imagination. But despite his immense wealth, he never forgot where he came from. The man was known for his humility. He avoided flashy displays of his fortune, instead focusing on giving back. Over the years, he donated millions to charities, funded educational programs, and even set up housing initiatives for underprivileged communities. His name often appeared in headlines for his philanthropic efforts, but he preferred to keep a low profile. So, why was he at McDonald's on Christmas Day? It was a simple answer: tradition. Every year, he made it a point to visit places that held sentimental value from his younger days. McDonald's had been one of the few places he could afford as a struggling student, and it reminded him of how far he'd come. He didn't come here for luxury or recognition. He came for the comfort of an old routine, a quiet moment to reflect on his journey while enjoying a cup of coffee. It was his way of staying grounded, even when the world saw him as a towering success. But today, his visit had taken a turn he hadn't anticipated. He sat at the table, his fingers resting on the surface, his mind calm despite the insult he had just endured. He could have spoken up, revealed his identity, and turned the moment into a spectacle. Yet he chose not to. Instead, he observed. He let the scene unfold, knowing that how he responded next would say more about him than any title or fortune ever could. The man sat quietly for a few moments longer, his calm demeanor never faltering. Around him, the restaurant buzzed with holiday energy, unaware of the storm brewing beneath his measured exterior. Finally, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. With a few deliberate taps, he sent a message. It was short, but carried significant weight. Within minutes, a sleek black car pulled up outside the restaurant. A sharply dressed assistant stepped out and entered, scanning the room before making their way to the man's table. They leaned down to listen as he spoke in a low, steady voice. The assistant nodded, taking notes on a tablet, and left just as swiftly as they had arrived. Karen, watching from behind the counter, furrowed her brow. She glanced at the man, her expression puzzled, but still tinged with the same indifference. She had no idea what was about to unfold. An hour later, a regional manager for McDonald's walked in, accompanied by a small team. The cheerful buzz in the restaurant quieted as they approached Karen, their faces serious. The billionaire remained seated, observing from his table. The manager asked to speak with Karen privately. She followed, her confusion turning into unease. In the back room, she was informed about the man she had mistreated, not just his identity, but also the gravity of what had just happened. Her face turned pale as the weight of her actions sank in. Meanwhile, in the main area, the regional manager addressed the staff and customers. They apologized publicly for the incident, emphasizing the company's commitment to respect and inclusion. The billionaire stood quietly in the background, never stepping forward to claim attention or make a spectacle. The impact of his response didn't stop there. He arranged for mandatory sensitivity training for all staff at that location, ensuring that no one else would face the same treatment. He also made a significant donation to a local community center, specifying that it be used to support underprivileged workers and promote equal opportunities. As for Karen, her shift ended much earlier than expected that day. She left the restaurant with a heavy heart, knowing her actions had not only cost her professionally, but had left a lasting mark on her conscience. The man, however, returned to his table and finished his coffee, quietly slipping out of the restaurant as the commotion settled. His actions spoke louder than any confrontation could have. The message was clear: respect is not optional, and humility has the power to change even the harshest hearts. The fallout from the incident was swift. By the next morning, the story had spread like wildfire, thanks to a few customers who had witnessed the interaction and shared it online. Social media lit up with posts recounting the event, many highlighting the billionaire's quiet yet powerful response to the mistreatment. Karen quickly became the center of attention, though not in the way anyone would want. Comments flooded in condemning her actions. People shared their own stories of facing similar treatment, turning her behavior into a symbol of a larger issue. The hashtag #RespectEveryone began trending, with users calling for accountability and change. News outlets picked up the story, adding more fuel to the fire. Articles detailed the billionaire's humble background, his philanthropic work, and his decision to address the incident without resorting to anger or public humiliation. Headlines ranged from "Billionaire teaches a lesson in humility" to "Christmas Day incident sparks nationwide conversation on respect." For Karen, the consequences were immediate and severe. McDonald's issued an official statement apologizing for her behavior, stating that it did not reflect the company's values of inclusivity and respect. They announced her suspension pending further investigation, along with plans to implement new training programs for staff. Karen herself issued an apology, though it was met with mixed reactions. "I deeply regret my actions and the pain they caused," she wrote in a statement shared online. Some saw it as a genuine attempt to make amends, while others viewed it as damage control. For McDonald's, the incident was a wake-up call. While the billionaire's decision to address the situation privately saved them from an immediate public relations disaster, the widespread attention forced them to reevaluate their policies and employee training. The company announced plans to roll out a nationwide initiative focusing on diversity and customer service, hoping to rebuild public trust. The billionaire, true to form, stayed out of the spotlight. When asked for a comment, his assistant issued a brief statement. He believes in responding with actions, not words. His hope is that this becomes an opportunity for growth and understanding. As the days went by, the incident sparked a broader conversation about everyday bias and the importance of treating everyone with dignity. Social media users shared messages of support for the billionaire's actions, while others called for systemic changes to prevent similar incidents. Through it all, the quiet man who had been at the center of it all remained a symbol of grace under pressure, reminding the world that even in the face of disrespect, kindness and humility could have the most lasting impact. This incident is a powerful reminder of how much our actions and attitudes can reveal about us. It highlights the deep impact of prejudice, how it not only hurts those on the receiving end, but also diminishes the one expressing it. Yet, in the face of mistreatment, the billionaire showed us something extraordinary: the strength of humility and the quiet power of responding with grace rather than anger. It's a story that urges all of us to reflect. How often do we judge someone based on appearances or assumptions? Do we truly treat everyone with the respect they deserve, regardless of who they are or what we think we know about them? These are questions worth asking, especially in moments when it might feel easier to dismiss or belittle someone. Let this serve as a lesson, not just for Karen or McDonald's, but for all of us. Respect isn't something to be reserved for a few. It's a gift we owe to everyone every day. What would you do if faced with a similar situation? How would you respond? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective. If you found this story meaningful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content. Together, we can spread messages of kindness and change. This story is a work of fiction created for entertainment and educational purposes. It is not based on real events or individuals. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead or real-life incidents is purely coincidental. Thank you for watching, and remember, every action counts.